Chapter 2. Days of Light, Shadows of Fear. Time seemed to flow differently for Sayan. The world around her had changed completely, and her former life, the one spent between the snows of Yaransk, Tarak's forge and the battles with the beast within, now seemed just a shadow frozen in memory. In New York, Sayan lived a life of dream, but also of illusion. Bobby offered her a position of high responsibility in the Turner Steel Industries Company, the empire built with toil, blood and ambition. Sayan, who had once been the woman of the wind and the forests, had now learned to wear high heels, sign contracts, talk to the press and smile at photographers. The position of International Relations Director brought her not only power, but also visibility. The newspapers called her the Lady of Steel, the woman who combined beauty with strength. Fashion magazines praised her elegance, and talk shows invited her for interviews. All of America looked at her as the symbol of modern refinement, a successful woman. But behind those spotlights, a secret was hidden much older than the noise of the city. Sayan could not sleep tonight. She lay awake in bed, her hands on her slightly rounded abdomen, feeling how the child moved inside her. Sometimes, the movement was gentle, like a breeze. Other times, she felt a strange force, almost animalistic, a start that made her remember the nights when her body was torn between flesh and fur. One night, in the bedroom mirror, she caught her gaze. For a moment, the iris lit up in a shade of intense amber. She blinked, and everything disappeared. But fear crept into her soul like an invisible claw. She did not know if the curse had been truly broken or just asleep. The Indian witch doctor had said that the liquor brings sleep, not salvation. And Tarak's sacrifice, although it had given her freedom, could only change the form of the curse. Maybe she was no longer a she-wolf, but maybe that ancient blood now lived in her child. Mornings always found her tired, but she didn't let it show. To the office, in the Turner Tower skyscraper, Sayan was the picture of perfection. Elegant dresses, impeccable hairstyles, measured words, and the conference room, everyone listened to her with admiration. She rarely spoke, but when she did, her voice had a hypnotic depth, a combination of foreign charm and the authority of a woman who knew exactly what she wanted. On such a morning, when the city roared with rain and taxis honked in waves, the assistant announced, "Mrs. Turner, Mrs. Benson wants to see you." Sayan looked up from her papers. Send her in. An elegant woman in her 30s entered the office, with brown hair and bright green eyes. She was wearing a beige coat and a warm smile. "Mrs. Turner," she said, extending her hand, "my name is Laura Benson. I was invited to your birthday party through a mutual friend. I liked what you said about social responsibility. I would like to discuss a charity project." Sayan smiled. The woman's voice had a special sincerity. "Of course, take a seat. I love it when people come up with ideas that can change the world." They talked for hours about foundations, children's hospitals, educational scholarships. But beyond the professional conversation, an immediate sympathy was born between the two women. Laura had a warm energy, a gentle intelligence and a discreet charm. In the weeks that followed, the two became friends. They went to teas, to art exhibitions, to long walks in Central Park. For the first time in a long time, Sayan felt normal. She laughed, joked, wore simple clothes, talked about nothing. Bobby was delighted. "It's good for you," he told her one evening. "It's nice to see you smiling again." But what Sayan didn't know was that behind Laura's smile was another story. Her husband, Michael Benson, was an investigative journalist, quiet man obsessed with the truth who had spent years pursuing hidden stories in the shadows of the city. Long ago, one winter night, Michael had photographed a creature during an attack in the Bronx, a white beast with golden eyes that had torn apart a gang of underworld thugs. The image was blurry, but in it the vague outline of a woman could be seen, Sayan's silhouette, caught between flesh and fur. That photograph had never been published. The newspaper had asked him to delete it, considering it a hoax. But Michael had kept it. He had looked at it thousands of times, and that creature's eyes he had found a strange humanity, a sadness deep. And when, years later, she saw Sayan Turner on television, presenting a charity project, she felt a vibration in her spine. She recognized the look. Since then, she had followed her in silence. The articles about her, the photos in magazines, the events. She knew that the woman who smiled in front of the cameras was the same beast who had once torn people apart on the streets of the Bronx. Laura didn't know the whole truth, but her husband had sent her close to Sayan out of curiosity mixed with suspicion. For Sayan, the friendship with Laura was becoming increasingly important. She felt like she could talk to her about her fears, about the nights she couldn't sleep, about the strange dreams of forests and screams. Laura always listened to her with sincere empathy, but deep down, a restlessness began to arise. Who was this woman really? One evening, while they were drinking wine on the terrace of the Turner's apartment, Laura looked at Sayan in the moonlight. "You have strange eyes," she said softly. "They seem to change in the light." Sayan smiled bitterly. "Maybe because I come from a world with less light." The next day, Michael Benson was the one who came in his wife's place at a charity event. When Sayan saw him, she felt an inexplicable shiver. His gaze was cold, fixed, penetrating, as if he knew something, smiled faintly at her, and at that moment, a subtle scent of wormwood and winter reminded her of Yaransk. For a moment, her senses sharpened, and the world became clearer, sharper. Michael came closer. "Mrs. Turner," he said in a calm voice, "it seems to me that we have met before. Maybe in another life." His words floated between them like a threat. Sayan kept her smile, but inside her heart was beating wildly. She understood then that the past had not died, it had only been hiding, waiting for the moment to come out into the light again. That night, after she returned home, she looked in the mirror again. Her face seemed the same, beautiful, calm, human. But deep in her gaze, where the light did not reach, something slept, an instinct, a memory, a fear. The days of light were beautiful, but the shadows grew slowly, like the roots of an unseen tree. And Sayan felt that very soon, her world of glass and steel would crack.